On the afternoon of April 14th, 1922, a farmer walked into his neighbor's barn in rural Bavaria. He found 4 bodies stacked on top of each other, covered in hay. Inside the house, there were 2 more. But in the days before the murders, the family had found signs that someone had been on their property, even living in the house, without them knowing. Welcome to Mr.Telgou's True Horror Stories, and this is the Hinterkaifeck Murders. The Gruber family lived on a farmstead north of Munich, surrounded by dense forest on all sides. The nearest neighbor was not close. It was a lonely place, a place if you screamed, you wouldn't be heard. The Gruber family themselves was a family with much shame, violence, and guilt, hiding many dark secrets. Andreas Gruber, 63 of age, was the patriarch of the family. He was known throughout the community as a violent and angry man. In a rage, he was known to attack his family and neighbors with weapons such as scythes, pitchforks, and shotguns. He was feared and has a dark secret that would define this story. Cecilia Gruber, 72 of age, was Andreas's wife and the oldest of the house. She was previously married, where she was given the farm through her divorce agreement. She endured years of abuse, and even in an old and fragile state, she still worked hard on the farm. Victoria Gruber, age 35, daughter of Andreas and Cecilia. She was married in 1914, where the farm was signed over to the couple, but her husband died as a soldier during World War I. She was widowed around the age of 27, and this is where it gets dark. In 1915, Andreas, the father, and Victoria were both convicted for incest by the district court. They found that the two had an incestuous relationship between 1907 and 1910. Andreas was sent to jail for a year and Victoria for a month. This secret was known and talked about in the community. Everyone knew. They were arrested again in 1916 for the same reason, but was acquitted in 1920 for insufficient proof, meaning that it may have never stopped. Cecilia Gabrielle, age 7, was Victoria's daughter. She was conceived while Victoria's husband was alive, which means she's mostly likely to be his daughter. She was a normal girl who went to school and church, who had to witness without fully understanding the violence around her. Her existence becomes one of the most heartbreaking parts of this story. Joseph Gruber, age 2, was Victoria's son. He was a toddler and the youngest of the house. He was widely believed to be the child of Lorenz Schlittenbauer, their neighbor, and the man who accused Victoria and her father with incest for the second time. Both Victoria and Schlittenbauer publicly claimed him as theirs. Lorenz Schlittenbauer was a neighbor who had a romantic relationship with Victoria. At the time of the murders, Victoria was planning on suing him for child support for Joseph. This humiliated him. Carl Gabriel was the dead husband of Victoria, who died during the war in 1914. His body was never recovered, but rumors persisted after the war that Carl has been seen alive. Imagine if he was alive and found out about the dark secret of Andreas and what he did to his wife. About 6 months before the murders, the family's maid abruptly quits. Her reason was that she thought the farmstead was haunted. She heard strange noises in the attic, such as footsteps above her. She heard movements and scratching. When she left, the family couldn't find a replacement for months. This means that someone or something was potentially in that attic 6 months before the murders. This is where it becomes genuinely terrifying. Days before the murders, Andreas discovers tracks in the snow. These footsteps lead from the forest to the farm's machine room, a door with a broken lock. What is strange is the footprints go in one direction, only with no returning tracks. Whoever made those prints walked out of the forest, entered the building, and never left. They had to be inside. Andreas told his neighbors about this, but did not contact the police. That same night, the entire family hears footsteps in the attic above. Andreas goes up to search, but finds nothing. But the maid heard the same things 6 months ago. Someone has been in the attic, possibly for months, and the family can't find them. Andreas finds a newspaper from Munich on the property, but no one in the family bought it. Nobody in the area subscribed to it. Someone from outside must have brought it. Someone who has been in Munich. This is a small detail, but it proves that someone else was there. A set of house keys vanished and is never found. If the intruder took them, they now have unrestricted access to the entire farmhouse. Every lock, every door, every room. Someone was watching this family. Someone had entered the building and might have been living there, possibly in the attic, possibly in the machine room. They had the keys. They knew the routines. They had been there for days, maybe weeks, maybe months. And the family knew something was wrong, but couldn't find the threat. They were being hunted in their own home and didn't know. It was the afternoon of Friday, March 31st, 1922, and the family's new maid had finally arrived. Her name was Maria Baumgartner. She was accompanied by her sister, who briefly stayed at the farm before leaving. She is the last person to see any of them alive. Maria had no idea what she was walking into. She is only there for hours when it happened. She simply was in the wrong place at the wrong time. What follows is reconstructed from the crime scene evidence. At some point in the evening, the family members are lured or led to the barn one by one. The killer is waiting with a mattock, a heavy agricultural tool like a pickaxe, which belongs to the family. Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, and little Cecilia brutally murdered. All 4 bodies are stacked on top of each other and covered with a wooden board and hay. The killer takes the time to arrange them, to hide them. There are signs that poor little Cecilia was conscious hours after being attacked. Then the killer enters the house. 2-year-old Joseph in his bed and is murdered. Maria, the new maid who arrived that same afternoon, is killed in her bed. After murdering 6 people, the killer does not leave. They stay at the farm for 3 days. They feed the cattle and the other animals. They eat all the bread in the kitchen. They cut meat from the pantry. They light the fireplace. They live in this house with 6 corpses for 3 days. A substantial amount of money sits untouched in the house. This was not a robbery. And then, at some point before April 4th, they simply leave. People come to place orders from the family, but no one is home. Little Cecilia doesn't show up to school. The family doesn't show up to church. After 4 days, people become suspicious, especially their neighbor Lorenz Schlittenbauer. Schlittenbauer sends his sons to check the farm, but they see no one. Then he, along with other neighbors, go to the farm at 3:30 p.m. on April 4th. They enter the barn and eventually the house. They find 6 bodies. They also find the farm running like someone had been living there. This is where the investigation is doomed before it begins. Dozens of neighbors and curious locals flood the farm. People walk through the barn, through the house, through every room. People move the bodies, handle potential evidence, touch everything. Someone even cooks a meal in the kitchen. The same kitchen the killer ate for 3 days. By the time investigators arrive from Munich, the crime scene is destroyed. Footprints trampled, surfaces contaminated, items move, context obliterated. The autopsies were also performed in the barn the next day. It was poor conditions in a rural barn with limited tools. The bodies were also buried before examinations were completed. The police removed the skulls of the victims' bodies and sent them back to Munich to a clairvoyant, a psychic, hoping the supernatural could help the case. The psychic produces nothing. And then World War II happens, and the skulls, along with thousands of case files and evidence records, are destroyed in bombing campaigns. The single most valuable forensic evidence in the case gone forever. The investigation went nowhere. Over 100 people from the area are investigated and questioned, but with no leads. The robbery theory collapses immediately because too much money was left behind. In 1923, the farmstead is demolished. The physical crime scene ceases to exist. During the demolition, they found the blood-covered mattock hidden in the attic loft. In 1955, the case is officially closed, no killer identified. And in 1986, the last official interrogations take place. Over 60 years of investigation and nothing. Victoria was about to sue him for child support, which would have led him to financial and social ruin. He knew the farm intimately, the layout, the routines, the access points. After finding the bodies, he went to the house and unlocked the front door without issue and entered alone, suspected for having the missing key. In 1925, he also told a teacher that the killer tried to bury the bodies, but the ground was frozen. But how would he know this? However, there was no physical evidence, and he was never charged. But if he was the murderer, he killed the woman he once loved, the child he fathered, then volunteered to find the bodies and played the shocked neighbor. Victoria's late husband's body was never recovered from the battlefield. Rumors circulated that he was seen alive after the war. If he was alive, he would have learned his wife was in an incestuous relationship with her father during the marriage. And the farm was legally his property. However, 2 soldiers positively identified his body, and a 7-year gap between the incest conviction and the murders is hard to explain. But if he was the murderer, he was a man who returns from the dead, kills everyone, then lives in the house that was supposed to be his for 3 days, and then vanishes again, never to be seen. The attic noises, one-way footprints, missing keys, and Munich newspapers all point to a methodical stalker with no known connection to the family. Bill James's 2017 book, The Man from the Train, links Hinterkaifeck to a series of American family murders by German immigrant Paul Mueller. Same weapon type, body stacking, no robbery motive. Over 100 suspects questioned. The real killer may not have been among them. This family was prey. Someone watched from the trees, lived in their attic, learned their patterns, then struck, stayed, and vanished into nothing. No name, no justice. But the crime seemed like it was driven by personal, emotional conflict, not a stranger. Investigators believed that there was more motive behind the murders than senseless killing. After 100 years, we still don't know what happened. The farmstead was demolished in 1923. The physical place is gone. The skulls were lost in World War II. The forensic evidence is gone. The suspects are dead. The witnesses are dead. The files are incomplete. And someone who might be in the historical record, who might have been questioned, who might have lived a full life afterward, got away with it. The Hinterkaifeck farm is gone. The forest has reclaimed it. But the question is still there, sitting in the dark like footprints that only go one way. Your support keeps the darkness growing. Like and subscribe, and I'll make sure the next true story horrifies you. Until next time, if you dare.